Good morning, CIT 261. I wanted to give you one more demonstration of your possible way you can do your training for your code topics when you start meeting with your teams. This first week here is going to be a little bit busy week for you. You're going to meet with your teams, decide when you will meet with your teams, and you're also going to decide on who's going to do what training and when. Excuse me. I had this problem the last time I did a video with you guys. So I'm going to show you a little bit on Ajax, just a little bit. I don't want to show you too much because I want you doing the research and understanding it. I want you to get an idea of how to do the training because I think a lot of you are uncomfortable with that and not sure exactly what is expected of you. And I'm going to keep this one a lot shorter. Last time I didn't realize it, but I went on for a half hour. So I'm going to try and keep this one short and to the point. It's about a very interesting topic, Ajax. So let me share my desktop. Love this part here, the infinite fadeaway. All right, let's turn this into a presentation here. All right, a little bit on Ajax. It's not magic. A lot of people get very anxious about Ajax. I'm going to show you Ajax in 6 lines of code. Done. That's all you have to do. Let's look at each of these lines one by one. I'm going to let you look at this page here for just a half a minute, and then we'll look at them one by one. I have this function, get file from server. This was a function probably called from a button push on in an HTML page. We get a connection to the server. We identify the function to call when the ready state has been met. And then there's the if statement there. That's when the ready state is met, and then the work we're going to do. And then there's what we're telling the server we want, and then we're telling the server to do it. So let's move on. Let's go over to Ajax line by line. Well, first of all, if we're going to talk to the server, we need to have a connection to it. So XML HTTP request. That's it. We get a connection to the server. Now, in order to use that connection properly, we're going to need to set some attributes. So let's look at the attributes. On ready state change, this is a pointer to a function. If you're familiar with C, you probably have used these before. So we're going to create a function that will be called when the server is ready. The open method has 3 parameters. The method is the type of request we're going to make to the server. Are we going to use get or post? The example I've got is we're going to use get. I want you to do the work and research on what the difference is between get and post. Why would you use one or the other? URL is the file that you're going to be asking from the server. And async, you're going to do this asynchronously or synchronously. Well, the whole purpose of Ajax, asynchronous Java, totally slipping my mind what Ajax stands for, but the A is for asynchronous. Then we call send. We tell the server, do it. You know the parameters. We pass those along to you. Now get the file. On ready state change, we're going to go back to that first page that has all the lines of code once we've gone through all of these. When the on ready state change values has a 4 and a 200, that means we're ready. The file is ready for us. And what 4 actually means and 200 actually means, you go look those up. W3 Schools is a fantastic place to find it. There's a million other places out there on the internet. I want you to go look at those and see what those values mean. And when you are understanding them, you will understand more the state machine nature of Ajax. It goes through several state changes, and when you get to a particular one, the 4 and the 200, then you're ready to go. you're going to find diagrams out there that explain what the states are and what they mean. And I want you to understand those, and I'm not going to go into details here. Now, the pointer on ready state change needs a pointer to a function. Now, a function normally is defined as function, then a function name, and then the parameters. You can see this function here does not have a name. It says, here we have a function, and here are the parameters. And then there's no name, and that's okay. So we're creating this little block of code that has an address to it, and we're assigning that to onReady state change. And again, it'll be nice to go back to the 6 lines of code page and see everything all in one page here. So back on this page here, it says do stuff here. So our data is available, and we're ready to do stuff. Well, like what? Well, you can do anything. Your data is available. Where do you get your data at? The XML HTTP request object has a attribute in it called a response text. And it's text. So you can take that text and do whatever you want with it. So I'm going to grab a field on my screen called text div, and I'm going to set the HTML for that field. I'm going to take the text from the XML HTTP object, response text, and store that into that field on the screen. I'll get element by ID. That is going to be, you'll understand that more when you get into a lesson on DOM. But what this does is it allows me to find a field on the screen, access the text portion of that field, and populate that field from the server with response text. Now, what if you want to do some cooler stuff? Because you definitely need to do more than that to do well in this class. So what you need to do is you need to receive data in as a JSON object. So the text comes to you as text, and you need to parse that to convert it to JSON. So you just simply use JSON.parse. And now JSON data is a JSON object. And instead of just taking all of the text that was in response text, we can take a particular field value from there. So again, we're going to get the text div element from the screen and set the text data for it. We're going to say JSON data dot whatever our key field is. And it'll go look at that key field in the JSON data and get the value entry for that and put that to your screen. That's it. That's it. There isn't too much to it. There's infinite possibilities of what you can do for it. That is just a very narrow view of Ajax. I want you to understand it a lot more. And I wanted to give you a quick view of my app of what the code does. So let's go back. Let's actually run some code. Where's my code at? Oh, I guess I don't have it ready. Let me get it up here for you and run this on my local machine. This is just a tiny Ajax example. So if I click this button here, it's going to read a small file. And that small file has hello world in it. Remember the state change we talked about earlier? We get called back from the server 4 times as the fields are updating. 1, 2, 3, and 4 is when we finally get our data. Here I'm retrieving some JSON text. And then finally here, this button actually returns some HTML. Now I kind of went through that quickly, and we're going to go through it again slowly. I'm going to show you the code. This is all of the code that I just demonstrated. I have 3 buttons on the screen. There's read a small file, read a JSON file, and read an HTML file. And the onClick function, I'm passing 3 parameters into my get file from server method. I'm passing the URL of the file on my server. Just a minute. What here? Okay, I'll get back with you. Sorry. Text div is the field on the screen. See this field here? Text div. I'm passing that in to my method, and we'll see what that's going to do. False is, if it's true, I'm receiving a JSON file. If it's false, it's just a text file. So I'm going to pull, I'm going to call this function here and request the text file, .text field file. This one, I'm going to request a JSON file, and this one here, I'm going to request an HTML file. So here's the get file from server. There's the URL, the div ID, and is the file JSON? I get my HTML, XML, HTTP request object. I'm going to set the onReadyStateChange function to this. When the steady ready state is 4 and the status is 200, I'm going to do something with the response. I'm going to take the response text, the div ID, remember the div ID up here? I'm going to pass that in, and I'm going to pass in the is it JSON or not. So this is what happens when the states are all lined up and we're ready to go. You hardly will ever have this line of code in there, but it's kind of interesting for education purposes. I am going to, whenever the state is not ready, I'm going to print out what the ready state values are, just for interest's sake. You can see I'm just creating a text string there with the ready state, the status, and then a break. And here we call the server, telling it the URL we want, and I'm using the get method. Now with the ready state's going to change, and then finally everything will be ready, and we're going to call the do something with the response. And one last time I'm going to just separate my debugging statements with the carriage return to separate them a little bit. If it's JSON, I need to parse it, json.parse. If it's not, I just can take the text directly. Then I take the text, and I'm going to put that into a field on the screen. Now here's the div ID, and that matches this div ID here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace the whatever is here. I'm going to step on this div and replace whatever used to be there with whatever I got from the server. Now if it's JSON, I'm going to access the JSON key value in the JSON file that I had. Otherwise, I'm just going to take the text as is. Let me show you the files that we're receiving. The text file, hello world. The JSON file, very small. I have a JSON key, and I have some text. And notice that inside that text, I went and embedded some HTML code. And finally, the HTML file, I just have some pure HTML in there. There's no head, there's no body, it's just the HTML. It includes a button, it includes some bolding of the text. Now let's go back and run my code again. I'm going to read the small file. And remember, I put the code in there to look at the status change. So I got a ready status of 1, 2, 3, and then boom, hello world came in, and I stomped on the code in the div HTML. I stomped on what used to be there, and what used to be there was a button, and I replaced that with hello world. The JSON file, I'm going to do exactly the same thing, and I put in it has value for the key. Remember, the JSON file had value for the key there. And finally, reading the HTML file. I just had some basic HTML. I had some breaks in there. I had a strong flag to bold the text. And also it has a button. Read the small file again. I'm going to show you the HTML file again. See this? Read the small file again, and it is going to call the get file from server. It's going to read the small text file again. And see the new div there? That matches this new div here. So when I click on this button, it's going to replace this button with hello world. Now this is a little obnoxious that this keeps popping up. So I'm going to do something. I'm going to simplify this. I'm going to go to my tiny HTML, and I am going to comment this out. Now that you've seen it, there's my code. I didn't want. Okay. All right, so now this time I'm going to read the small file. It's going to replace the button. I'm going to read the JSON file. It's going to replace the button. I'm going to read the HTML file, and it's going to pop in some HTML text. I'm going to, including a button that has an on-click event, and there we replace the hello world. Let's see. You saw the code keep moving down because I had this extra line in there to document the state change. So this will look a little cleaner. Replace that with what I got from the server. And that is all there is to it. I'm going to close this now. Let's see. I need to get back to Google Hangouts. Let's stop the screen share. Change rooms on you here. So that is a very simple demonstration. Now, you're going to do in your team meetings is you're going to have a lot more interactive. You're going to have people asking questions, and you're going to look at the code in more detail. I'm going to post this video, and I'm also going to post the code. Do not repost my code. I want you to take that and make it more complex, do something with it. But Ajax, sometimes you waste a lot of time saving it for the very end, when actually there isn't really too much to it. Ajax is very simple and a very powerful tool, because you're going to be using this as a one-page application, remember? That's what the team app is. And Ajax is how you will grab something from the server and change the appearance of your screen without having to go from page to page to page. It's just going to happen like that, so the user has a much cleaner, snappier experience with the code. So hopefully this will be a little helpful for you, and I will post this, and I'll be talking to you this week as you meet with your team. So I want to participate with you, make sure I answer your questions, and you're able to get up and running. So I'll talk to you later. Bye.